Hey everyone, welcome to the Woolad Podcast. I'm James Marshall and thanks for tuning in to another episode. Firstly, quick shout out to Todd's Racing. The champion harness trainer Regan Todd is flying at the moment, so make sure you go give them a follow on their Facebook or their Twitter. That would be very much appreciated. And while we are there, if you enjoy this podcast, make sure that you are following the What a Lad Instagram account or the Facebook page, or subscribe to the YouTube channel. Or if you are the ultimate lad, sign up to the Lads Club for discounts and some exclusive pranks coming soon. To sign up, head over to whatalad.com, scroll down the bottom, it'll say become a lad, type in your email, and then that's it. It's all you have to do and you're in the Lads Club forever. Welcome. Go do that. Anyway, I got a great lad for you today, so let's roll the intro.
What a lad, what a lad, what a lad, what an absolute lad. What a lad, what a lad, what a lad, what an absolute lad.
What a lad, right team? Now I'm really looking forward to this one as I have a recent Olympic medalist on the show who's not only coached the New Zealand Sevens team to all sorts of success over the last few years, he's actually done it all, from carving up on the Sevens circuit himself for Scotland to successfully coaching his sides such as Taranaki, the Hurricanes and London Irish. And of course, you all know it, he is an absolute lad. He's one of the greatest Scottish Kiwis of all time. It is the great Clark Laidlaw. Welcome, Clarky.
Hell of a build-up. I'm not sure about the carving up part on the 7 Series, but I'll take it.
You're on there for a long time though, eh? Longer than I thought.
Yeah, off and on. So I played 2000 originally, and then I went to 15s for a couple of years and didn't last too long there. Got kicked out of my contract and then went back to 7s 2004, I think. Played 18 tournaments at the back end there. So yeah, off and on.
Mate, you must have been a gun. 18 tournaments.
Yeah, 18.
16 more than me.
Yeah, well, that's right. I think the heat got you in Dubai, didn't it?
Yeah. I didn't get on enough.
I remember you getting sunburn on your forehead because you weren't allowed to wear a cap.
Oh, that rule used to break me. Oh, Titch wouldn't let me wear my cap. I used to get the lasagna, the burnt, and the little bits where my hat used to protect me. And training in the heat, what was it, 30 odd degrees, sun beaming down, not allowed to wear my hat, sweat dripping in the eyes. Just one of those unnecessary rules. Hopefully you've changed that. I see you're wearing a hat now.
Yeah, that's because I'm going bald and grey, so that's why I've got a hat on.
Yeah, it's the grey part, so always wear the hat. Anyway, mate, really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I know you're a busy man in isolation, biking marathons every single day. Talk to me about that. What's the reason behind that one?
Over the last year, I had a bit of a tough year. My mum passed away just over a year ago, and my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So my little brother Chris back home, he decided to take on a challenge, 12 and 12, which is he's going to run 12 marathons in 12 months. And obviously, I can't be there to either support him. I'm not sure I'd be there to run one, even if I was in Scotland. So yeah, I just thought I would do my bit, try and have a little bit of awareness for his, give a little page. So it's 12 and 12, Chris Laidlaw. Give a little, so he's giving back to the 3 charities that really helped us out. So the Injured Players, which is a Scottish charity for injured rugby players, Alzheimer's Scotland, who supported my old man, and then the Marie Curie, which is the nurses that came in and helped my mum stay at home. She had a short battle with cancer, so yeah, something that's pretty close to obviously our family's hearts. So if I can, raise a little bit of awareness by sitting on my little horse here each day, then hopefully I can help him and his. He's done 7, so he's got a few to go. He did his first one back home in the week, a couple of weekends ago. So yeah, see if I can do my part for that.
Oh, mate, you're a good man. So how many bikes are you in already?
1.
How was it?
Yeah, it was all good. The bigger laugh was some of the boys decided they reckoned they were going to join in. So we've all got bikes in the rooms. I think I'm the only one with a walk bike because I got in touch because I knew I was going to do it. So I think the biggest laugh was Tim Mickelson tried to ride it, but he couldn't get the seat high enough. Aquila Roccolaso finished by sitting on the ground, pedalling. So I think some of the boys might be one and done. I see Joe Weber posted one and said, "You'll see me in 3 days." He's off back to bed. So yeah, it was pretty cool yesterday. A few of the boys jumped on board and done a few of the management are getting involved. But I think the range of bikes might stop a few doing the 12.
Yeah, so what's your plan of attack today? When are you going to attack it? Is there a perfect time for you?
No, I went at 2 o'clock yesterday. It seemed like quite a good time. So I had a lazy morning. Got a couple of calls this morning, so I'll probably go after lunchtime again. Seems like I think the afternoons will drag a little bit here in MIQ, so the mornings seem to go reasonably quickly, usually because it's an early start for us, 9:30.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I'll jump on after lunchtime again and knock one out.
Oh, mate, you're a good man, and I strongly recommend anyone who's listening who can donate to go check out that and donate if you can. I'll chuck the link at the bottom of the podcast when I release it. So make sure you go give that a click and donate what you can for a good cause and a couple of good people. Your brother, he is a legend, running 12 marathons in 12 months. That's a tough gig.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about the Olympics, because obviously, mate, it was awesome to see you guys on the biggest stage at the Olympics, and amazing achievement to get your silver medal, but you would be feeling a little bit disappointed not to go one better, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think so, mate. It's quite a mixed emotions, isn't it? It's usually when you play a game of rugby or a tournament, you sort of win or you lose.
Yeah.
And you feel like you can sort of accept that. Winning a silver at an Olympics, you know, I think in reflection is a pretty amazing achievement for the players and the team. But I guess with competitiveness, and we certainly went there with the ambition to win a gold. You know, I think it's mixed emotions. I'm sure, you know, as we get through the next 2 weeks, I guess the winning and losing the tournament will probably fade. You know, and I think we all know that in rugby, at the time, it's the most important thing in the world, isn't it, to try and win. And man, we put so much effort over the last 3 or 4 years to try and put a team there that could win. And
yeah.
But I think the overriding thing for me, mate, is going to be sort of real satisfaction and pride around the group of men we've developed on and off the field. We're bloody lucky that we've got a great group. You know, we spent sort of 3 hours after the tournament sitting in the changing room, just yarning to each other and talking about, you know, the last few years and sharing some memories and thanking each other. And I think that'll be the thing, as you know, mate, in a changing room, it's probably the thing nobody can ever get. You know, you can't buy that feeling you get as a tight group. And again, Sevens is even tighter, isn't it? It's a small group, and it was only 13 players and a few management. So that 2 or 3 hours after the tournament, I think, is probably once the initial disappointment of not being able to get a gold, that's the thing that'll stay with me. But yeah, mixed emotions is probably the easy way of describing it. So super proud of how we prepared and played, but as you know, against Fiji, a couple of those little opportunities that got away from us, I thought we didn't react to one of their kickoffs quick enough. We lost the ball, little fly hack through that they got a little bit lucky with, and then at 19-12, I felt like we'd wrestled the game back. You know, the momentum was probably with us. We were hanging in there, and I think if we'd scored at 19-12, it felt like we could come over the top. But again, we missed an opportunity up that left-hand side, and then they were good enough to go down and eventually score off a big ball in play, which took the game away from us. So it was an unbelievable experience. So I'm sure you want to talk about that, but man, the Olympics was unreal.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Sevens that you mentioned there is one on such small margins, eh? Like, it's the smallest thing can turn a game, and sometimes a kick can win it. But it's the smallest margins that win or lose your game. So how hard is that to prepare for and plan for? I
think that's the beauty of Sevens, like why it helps develop players, develops fitness staff and coaches and players, because you've got no room for error. You miss one clean, you drop a ball, you miss one tackle, miss one kickoff, that can be the game. In 15s, very rarely is it won and lost on just a tiny little moment. So it really puts your skills, your decision making under real pressure. And preparing for it, you know that it's the ultimate game of consequence when you go in there. Especially against the best teams, that it doesn't take much. If you look at the Australian game, we were 12-0 down out of nowhere, and as you say, Andrew Newstab kicked a conversion from the sideline to get us back in the game, and then we scored another try. We win 14-12. So it's as much as we lost the game on fine margins, we certainly won a couple on similar fine margins. So I think that's what makes it so exciting, especially in the men's game. There's nothing between the teams. You look at South Africa missing a quarter final, who Argentina were down to 6 men with, I think it was 12 minutes to go. So it was a crazy tournament that we all know any of the teams can beat anybody. So I think that's why it looks like it's been going pretty well on social media and TV and stuff.
And how tough was the rescheduling of the tournament for you guys? Obviously, it got pushed back. You'd planned for a long time to have the tournament at a certain date, and then it all got pushed back. How hard was that to adapt to?
Oh, yeah, it was difficult. It was there was a number of fronts. The program got shut down for 3 months. All our staff, apart from I think there was 4 of us across the 2 teams, we went down to 3 days a week. The rest of the staff didn't have a job for 3 months. So that was bloody difficult. Certain players were here and then went to 15s, and we got most of them back, but not all of them back. So it changed the makeup of our squad. I think there was a couple of things we put into our game that we thought was ready to peak last year, and then maybe teams got a read on our defensive system or some areas of the game that all of a sudden had another year and a bit for people to have a look at rather than just 4 or 5 months. But all in all, mate, it was an amazingly proud of how the group responded to all that. By the time we all got back together just after Christmas, because we weren't really back together until January, all staff, all players, and it kind of felt, it gave us an actual boost because everybody had missed being together so much. So the players and staff, I think, had a real boost. I think that some of the players that went to 15s realised why they love sevens so much.
Yeah.
And they maybe realised how well, we do stuff and how well looked after they are from a training perspective. And so that was actually a real positive that some guys had went away. And you look at somebody like an Amanaki Nicole who went to Southland, probably realised that, he was easily good enough to be an NPC player, came back with a lot of confidence in his own game, and he was somebody that we thought, got a real benefit from going to 15s, then coming back and realising, that he actually done some stuff really well, and his game was probably further ahead than he realised. So I think in some ways it was really, it was really tough, and you wouldn't want to go through that too often. But in other ways, it gave guys like a Scott Curry, he was another one who had never played NPC, ended up becoming the true hybrid player, didn't he? Playing 6, 8, and 12. So guys like that, got to do stuff that maybe in a normal Olympic cycle they wouldn't have got to do. So there's always positives, isn't there? If you look for opportunities, there was some certainly good positives there too.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that the boys were well looked after in terms of training and stuff. You've obviously changed the program up there because no one has ever talked highly of the sevens training schedule. It's usually a real tough slog. So what's changed?
It's still a tough slog. I guess we try and use a fair bit of sports science to prepare the players. So you can't just train hard all day every day, can you? So there's a real specific nature to how we try and prepare based off what the game looks like. We've genuinely tried to create an environment where players love to be part of it, have a lot of fun, and build really good connections on and off the field. It's something we thought was important coming out the back of the last Olympics. With centralising the team. We're not like every national team where you come together for short periods. I guess we're almost more like a Super Rugby team and a NPC side because we're together the whole year. So it's really important we get that balance right, mate, around working hard, working smart, having fun. And I think in the main, we've done a really good job at that. But it is hard. I sometimes think or wonder if that's why a few 15s players, steer clear of sevens because people talk how hard it is, and it is. It's a brutal game, isn't it? But it's a great game for any young player or player that wants to develop, skill development under pressure, build some resilience that you all need to succeed at the top level.
100%, couldn't agree more with that. I'd say it's a massive development tool for rugby, and I feel like it's sort of underused at the moment, I reckon.
No, and that's it's another challenge we've got now is what the sevens in the country look like. We've obviously got the Red Bull tournament that was a huge success.
Yeah,
but it's definitely a challenge. The Condors in the World Schools is an amazing event for your 17, 18-year-olds, but we certainly, in my opinion, we still need some sort of provincial involvement in sevens. Man, after being in Olympic Games, I can't understand why everybody involved in rugby doesn't want to play sevens. It's a hell of an experience to go and rub shoulders with the best athletes in the world and the biggest stage, males and females. You look at what girls have done and, the sort of profile that they can bring to inspire the next generation of rugby players is huge.
Were you surprised not to get more Super Rugby players make themselves available for the tournament? The guys like Riasi and stuff who sort of turned it down?
I'm not sure if I'm surprised. I'm disappointed, or I think after being the Olympics, I'm a little bit confused why players wouldn't want to go. You're at dinner with Djokovic, you're walking around watching the NBA, French basketballers, the Spanish guys, or you've got the best athletes that you're watching on TV now. You've got some of the New Zealand's best sports stars, from rowing to track cycling, Lisa Carrington and so on. I think we need to find a way of opening up people's idea to what the Olympics is. It's the biggest sporting event in the world. It's not, it's not a 15s game that only 5-6 countries might watch. 10 if you're lucky. It's every country, every corner of the world, every sport you can think of. So hopefully over the next wee while we can try and get round and whether it's part of our player development or education around our younger players around what it feels like. Hopefully some of our younger players can try and share their stories around what the Olympics felt like to try and inspire that next generation. I think it's easy in the women's game because our girls are the pinnacle of the sport. Under the sevens girls have been, I guess, like the All Blacks. So for us, we need to, try and open up people's idea to what playing at the Olympics could look like.
And you mentioned the Olympic Village there. So nothing really changed with the COVID lockdown? It was still mingling with some of the biggest names in the game and being able to go and watch other games, etc.?
No, we weren't able to go and watch, which was hugely disappointing. I think it would have been an unbelievable Olympics in Tokyo. It looked so well set up. The village, we had to wear masks and basically went to the food hall, got your, wash your hands, put your gloves on, got your food, sat as far away from other people as possible, and then went back to your apartment. But it's just it's the atmosphere. It's something you can't really, put your finger on. It's being part of a bigger New Zealand team. Not just rugby, where I think in rugby we can become, people talk about being in a bubble with COVID, but I think in 15s you're genuinely in a bubble. You go to a hotel, you don't see your opposition, you play them on a Saturday, then you go home again. Whereas being part of the Olympic team, welcoming in, our boys done an amazing job getting part of the NZOC team, welcome other sports in, mingling where the TV was and getting coffees together. Watching people come back with medals, it's an amazing atmosphere and something. They're the things that you probably remember more is, watching those rowers come back with all their medals and watching our men almost be in awe of another sport, and it's pretty cool. And it's as I say, not just being in rugby and being involved in a bigger, wider team is. It's a great experience.
Yeah, and who was the biggest celebrity to come get a photo with you?
I think my mask must have hid me. So nobody went out of their way to get a selfie. So we were seriously tempted when we seen Djokovic to go and ask him for a selfie. He had a big long line of athletes waiting to catch up with him, so we left him to it.
Oh, true. Was he probably the biggest name you bumped into?
Yeah, the couple of basketballers that played for France, I can't remember his name. I didn't know him, but all their boys knew him. He was the guy that got the NBA shut down for COVID when he touched all the mics, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
And he had COVID the next day. So by all accounts, he gets 30 million US a year. So I guess he's a pretty big star in the NBA. But
Similar to you.
yeah, it's real similar. I just love seeing the New Zealand athletes. I loved seeing the way they went about their work, and yeah, it was pretty cool to, as I say, to watch those rowers come back with so many medals.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, mate, it's bloody good rundown on the Olympics. That's good stuff. But we need to get through a little bit of your story as well. Great Scotsman. Who you must just pinch yourself sometimes, realising where you are now, coaching the New Zealand Sevens side, coming from Scotland. Pretty weird Scottish bloke just who's come over to New Zealand and now coaching the pinnacle of New Zealand sport, which is the All Black Sevens side. So it must be pretty surreal, eh?
Yeah, and I think it's felt more surreal over the last couple of weeks at the Olympics for sure.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you're right. It's, if somebody had said to me 10 years ago or 12 years ago when I first came to Taranaki, you'd be head coach of the All Black Sevens, you'd probably have laughed at them. But I think being at the right place at the right time, at Taranaki, we were really lucky to be involved in a province that had loads of good people and gave people opportunities. Again, you were involved with the Sevens the last time I was helping out as an assistant. And that was after 2 or 3 years of being in the country. So certainly it felt like I was in the right place at the right time a lot of the time and got really good opportunities. Taking this role on from a 15s team in London, I guess, is a little bit strange. But I wouldn't have changed it for the world now. It's a great team to be part of, and the last 4 years have been a hell of a ride.
So let's go back to your Scottish days. Growing up, I know your old man was a Scottish legend. I think he won the Grand Slam. Your cousin is a Scottish legend as well. Clark Laidlaw, top point scorer of all time. You're also now a legend as well. So, mate, rugby's massive in your family. Was it always a big part of your family growing up?
Yeah, it was. I don't know how many people know the borders of Scotland, the south. It's traditionally the rugby area of Scotland, real rural, small town, similar to Taranaki, I guess, made up of a lot of little towns. Jedburgh's the town we grew up in. It's only, I think, 4,500 people. So yeah, it was. I don't think there was any other option really. I played golf in the summer and rugby in the winter. That was it. And scuttled around the rugby club chasing after your old man, and used to go down to the trainings and stuff on a Tuesday, Thursday night and run around thinking you were, you were playing for Scotland. So it was always in our blood. And as I say, it was never felt you were forced and made to play rugby just because your old man did. And certainly had a couple of periods in your life where you kicked back a wee bit around, probably your old man playing international sport. Took up skateboarding for a year, but I wasn't very good at that. So I had to go back to playing rugby. So that's it's a real traditional rugby area, mate, and bloody lucky to have the childhood that you had, playing sport, and as I say, being able to run around the rugby club whenever you chose, Saturdays or Tuesdays and Thursdays, and yeah, it was cool.
And did you take rugby seriously, or when did you start taking rugby seriously and think that it could become something?
Yeah, well, rugby, even when I first played senior rugby when I was 18, wasn't professional. I think it went professional maybe the year after that, in 95, 96. So when you grew up, you took it serious because you wanted to play well. But like looking back now, man, we had no idea around where the game would go and that it could become a career. And I guess I was one of those players in that transitional period where you became a professional because you got paid, but not necessarily because you were an actual professional. So, probably enjoyed ourselves maybe too much off the field. Looking back now, certainly in my 15s, we had some good fun off the field, but we were rubbish on it. And ironically, I was probably more professional when I played sevens and didn't really get paid very much money. I ended up working part-time and playing sevens part-time. So yeah, the early part of my career was, a real transition both for rugby, but also for me to think, all right, well, rugby is now becoming, a genuine option around a career. And I got into rugby development through playing sevens that allowed me to do rugby development for my club side, Jed Forest. And yeah, I guess, when you finish playing rugby, I was a bit like, well, what do you do now? So I was lucky enough to get a job with a council, East Lothian Council, doing rugby development full time, and it sort of opened up my eyes to actually being organised as a rugby development officer. And Got in a sports team at a council. I think there was 7 or 8 different sports. I done that for just over a year before I moved to New Zealand, and I loved that experience. That sort of opened up my eyes to, I guess, properly doing a job rather than just filling it in to allow you to play rugby. So yeah, I was that big transitional period really for rugby, mate, where eventually started realising it could become a career.
So what stopped you from playing rugby? What ended the career in the end?
When I moved to New Zealand, it just looked way too hard. Now, when I moved, I was on the wind down. 2008, I was playing club rugby for Jed, and was actually coaching at the same time. And Cara and I moved to Taranaki in 2008 with our first little girl, Olivia. So she was only 1. We'd moved to the other side of the world. I thought continuing to play and going out and joining that club was probably not ideal when you'd moved your family to the other side of the world. Social rugby in Taranaki might have led to a few late nights on a Saturday, wouldn't it? So it's probably a wise idea looking back. The only time I played rugby in New Zealand was for 2 Cuppa senior thirds.
Oh, true.
So Karen and Olivia went home for 6 or 8 weeks. So that's when I actually joined 2 Cuppa senior thirds and played a few games. And my claim to fame is we beat the mighty Coastal in the final. Smiley Barrett and Robbo were both playing, and Robbo was the CEO at the time. So I took my medal in on the Monday morning to a whips meeting on the Monday morning, just to give Robbo some shit in the Monday morning meeting. So that was quite good fun.
So what, were you a halfback?
Yeah, I was a halfback, and then I became a first 5. And looking back, that was probably I was a decent halfback as a youth player.
Yeah.
And when I moved to first 5, really through my club round, I think I was about 20. I was an okay first 5, but I was a better halfback. I should have continued to play halfback. As you know, Jimmy, I was a good communicator because I've got a big mouth, and I was reasonably aggressive, so I was a good defender.
Yeah.
But as a first 5, I was a shit goal kicker, terrible line kicker. So I had to develop those areas of the game, and probably never good enough to then continue in the professional game.
True. No regrets though. No regrets on your rugby career.
Nah. Yeah, you could go back and have a wee word with yourself at 19, 20. You'd probably say, don't enjoy yourself off the pitch as much, but man, I've got some good stories.
Go on, give us one of them.
Well, it was just, you didn't know any different, did you? You just, I remember with the Borders team, we were fully professional, and we arranged to stay on in Dublin after we played Leinster on a Friday night because it was Scotland-Ireland on the Saturday, and man, what a couple of days we had. And then you go back to work on a Monday, and you're meant to be a professional rugby player again, having had 2 days on the Guinness.
Tough times. You and Davey Gray would have got up to all sorts when you were travelling together too, I'd imagine.
Yeah, he's worse than me. He's a hell of a lad. It's actually been quite cool. I don't know if you know, but Davy's been involved with us with the Sevens the last couple of months. The fitness trainer Blair Mills took off to Japan.
Oh, true.
So we got Davy involved because he was only doing 3 days a week with the Hurricanes. So it was that was pretty surreal. 2 sort of local boys. We've known each other since we were 15, 16. We played rugby against each other and then with each other. And so for the 2 of us to be involved over the last couple of months has been pretty cool. Getting him involved with the team.
Another thing I want to talk to you about is your time at the Hurricanes. You obviously went down there and became an assistant coach. So anything that stands out around your time down there?
Oh, I genuinely loved my time at the Hurricanes. They were the team I used to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch on Sky Sports whenever Super Rugby was on back home. And I remember Mark Hammett phoning me up and asking me if I was keen to go down in a skills role initially. Him and Alama asked me if I would go down and help out, and I think that probably felt more surreal than any of the jobs I got. I was so nervous going to the Hurricanes and thinking about coaching All Blacks and some of the best players in the world, and yourself.
Yeah, intimidating.
So yeah, the main thing would be, man, it was a great place to work, and the players' appetite at the Hurricanes when I was there was always to be better and work their ass off to be really good. I guess that year we lost the final, 2015, would be the easiest memory around good and bad. And we played some amazing rugby that year, and then came up short in that that final against the Highlanders, who done a job on us, I thought that day. But it's similar to all the memories, really, isn't it? With rugby, it's the people you meet and the experience you have. I wouldn't have changed a thing at the Hurricanes. It was getting to work with different coaches, getting to work with Hammer and Alama, but then Boydie coming in and Plums, two really experienced coaches that ran the team in different ways, allowed me to see that, as well as working with Hammer and Alama the initial years, and the mighty Watty and Chrono over both sets of coaches. So it was good times, wasn't it? We had some amazing leaders or players that wanted to grow the game. Bodie, yourself, Tim Bateman, it's three players that really ran the team. It was quite an easy team to work for in some regards. The skill level and ability didn't put too many handbrakes on how you wanted to play the game.
How old were you when you went into that environment?
2013, what's that? So yeah, 33, 34.
Oh, true.
So yeah, reasonably young, I guess. Certainly working with guys like Conrad and Frank, saying that, who you felt were almost the same age as you at the time.
Yeah.
Felt a little bit intimidating, if I'm being honest, at the start.
Yeah.
But I remember guys like Snakey, I had a look at his game one day around some of his tackle stuff, and I showed him a couple of things, and he was a bit like, "Can you have a look at this every week?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can have a look at it." And he's like, "Oh, it's good for somebody just to have a look at, the technical part." I think once the players get a little bit older and become captains and leaders, a lot of the tension in their game becomes around, either the tactical or the leadership side of the team.
Yeah.
So I think we initially went in just doing skills and just looking at, how people caught the ball or what the pass was like or how that looked, in the attack shape or defensive structure. I think players really appreciated that. So I got really good relationships with some of the senior players, which allowed me to probably relax a little bit and realise, I didn't need to prove myself. And I think once I'd done that, it allowed me to coach, just coach how I seen fit. And as I say, I really enjoyed those relationships with some of those senior players, certainly in the initial stages.
And you talked about the 2015 final. I know hindsight's an easy thing for coaching, but would you have done anything differently going into that final? That final's come up a lot throughout this podcast through the relationships that I've made, but there's been lots of different takes on it. What's your take?
Yeah, well, would have done something different. I would like to think so. Certainly want a different result. I think the biggest thing I've took from Sevens that I think we need to take into 15s is adaptation. So in Sevens we play 6 different teams over a weekend. The first 3 you're going to get, and you don't really know. Say the Olympics, you had no idea who you're going to get because it was if you won your group, it was going to be 8th. So you actually had no idea who you're going to play. So how we've prepared the team is really trying just to adapt to different scenarios rather than worrying about a certain opposition. And if you look at that game again, the Highlanders' ability to push up high and outside and turn us back in and stop us getting to width put us under a lot of pressure in that game. Now, did we ever train adapting to that picture? You'll be able to remember better than me, but I think no would be the short answer.
Yeah, we didn't expect it.
Nah. So I think, where my coaching and how I would want to prepare a team now is to expect everything and be ready for different solutions. The coming around the mall where they came round and sacked the mall, and we never really touched the ball again that last 10, sort of 15 minutes, was another good example of something we hadn't expected. So I think, that one game, mate, back then, was I experienced enough to talk at this? Nah. I think Jamie Joseph and Tony Brown are obviously bloody good coaches, and fair play to them. They prepared their team really well. And even that Olympic final, you start thinking, man, we didn't adjust to one of their kickoffs to start the kickoff, and we adjusted the second time, but not the first time, and they scored off the second one. So there's like another example where we still haven't quite got this team adapting quick enough. Because I think that's where the games went. Being prepared for than expected, but also being able to do the same to opposition.
Yeah.
So, would I have changed it? I think maybe now we could change it if you could go back. But at the time, we only lost 2 games the whole season, didn't we? We couldn't really have asked for much more. And that's rugby, mate. That's, some teams on the day are better than others. And, both the Hurricanes and the Sevens, we've been, bloody good at times. And that year was the same until we lose 2 games.
Yeah. And then you moved over to London Irish. So what brought that move about for you?
Oh, I think initially we were thinking about moving home. Car and I, we now had 2 daughters, and then our third was actually on the way as we made that decision. So, we'd been away for a long time. We initially came to New Zealand for a year. That's how I sold it to Karen, that we would we'd come for a year and we'd go home. So really we were, sort of 18 months up to maybe making that decision. And then I actually coached Samoa national team with Tom Coventry and Alama Ramia in the Northern Tour in the November previous. And Tom and I, were spoken to by London Irish. So I really enjoyed working with Tom. I liked his approach to the game and thought, if I was going to go home or to the UK and work with different people, I thought going with somebody I already knew, somebody I thought, would run a good team and want to play the game, I guess in a sort of New Zealand style. It was a good opportunity. So it kind of just all fell into place over a short period of time, just before the Christmas. As I say, we were pregnant with Emmy. Tom then had the opportunity to be the head coach at London Irish. So, it was a decision we thought at the time would see us, eventually end up back in Scotland, I guess.
So then what was London Irish like? Getting over there, trying to coach, trying to turn this team around, turn them into a New Zealand-styled playing group, I guess?
Yeah, it went badly, didn't it? You talk about hindsight, Jimmy. It's that's probably the period of my coaching I'm most disappointed about. Looking back in hindsight, there was things we done poorly. Expecting players to be able to change as quick or adapt to how we wanted to play the game. In hindsight was definitely a mistake. Not really understanding maybe the mindset more than the skill set of the players. Because I genuinely don't think it's a skill set issue. I think a lot of the time it's a mindset around how you can play the game and certainly how you can attack and find space. So there was heaps of stuff that first year. Ultimately we got relegated from the Premiership. That was a hugely tough experience watching a club go through that. I took no satisfaction whatsoever around being involved. I seen people lose their jobs that had worked for the club for years. I seen private owners that put in, £5 million of their own money, watch a team not perform and prepare as well as what everybody wanted. So it was, it was a tough year. We'd had a new baby. We're living in London. Some days it was taking you 2 hours to get home from training. And then you arrived and turned it all around. So it was, but yeah, that first year, mate, was bloody tough and definitely some real good lessons around change, around dealing with people, around building relationships. That's put me in a way better place in my coaching. And then the second year, I genuinely really enjoyed the second year. Being in the championship, the rugby was potentially not quite as good as the Premiership or Super Rugby, but actual coaching and the way the players applied themselves the second year, having you on board, not because I'm on your podcast, but having somebody that a coach can rely on to help run the game and build the game, is a huge thing, and certainly it was appreciative from my end having you involved and the coaches we worked with, the young English coaches with Dodge and Deck and Kendo, I thought brought a real enthusiasm and a real love for their club that rubbed off on the team. And winning helps, we understand that. Like we won, I think we won almost every game. Then we lost to Jersey away, and
Jersey, yeah.
I think there was one other game we lost that whole year, but I genuinely enjoyed giving back to the club and getting them promoted. I felt after the first year it was probably the right thing for me to do, was to was to stay. I had a couple of really good opportunities. Looking back, one was a big Irish team that maybe I should have took the job. It was a pretty cool job, but I felt it was the right thing to stay and give back and try and get the team at least promoted back in the Premiership and help with the recruitment for the following year.
And how did you find working with Brendan Venter?
Awesome. It was man, I loved working with him. I've never seen anybody challenge people as much. He was, I don't know if anybody listening will know Brendan that well, but he's obviously a doctor. So some of my best chuckles behind the scenes was him and Brian O'Leary, the head of medical, going at it around whether a player was going to be available for selection or what sort of treatment he was going to get. But Brian could give as good as he got, and there were some great days. And then, obviously, being a South African, me wanting to play with ball in hand and find space, and him wanting to kick it and maul it was. We had some really good discussions. But what I always found with Brendan was, mate, if you could argue your point and you had a fair reason around why you thought something would work, he would argue, but he would then either disagree and commit, or I would have to disagree and commit. But he was, I learned a lot around, you see, how positive and optimistic, and he only looked for effort. He only wanted his players to work as hard as they could, and he always, he put the pressure on the coaches to create the game plan and work with the players to be better. So But man, we had some classics behind the scenes, that's for sure.
He could definitely sell the dream, eh? He could have potentially one of the worst set-piece plays in history, but he could sell it like it was going to be the greatest move ever. I remember the old catapult couple round the corner plays, and he just sold it like it was the best play ever made up, and the boys all bought into it, and they loved it, and I think we scored off it.
Oh, we did. I think we scored at Eland.
Yeah, that's right.
But I guess that's the art of coaching sometimes, isn't it? Being able to sell the dream and motivate your players. And you're right, it's, I guess no idea is a bad idea if everybody buys in and rips in. So you're right. He was a good salesman, but yeah, I used to wait on him coming in on those Monday mornings. He'd fly from South Africa overnight, and then he'd come in on a Monday and just go nuts till the game on a Saturday, then leave again. And all the coaches would be like that. Right, we can relax again for the next 3 or 4 weeks till he comes back.
I think the players were like that in the meetings too, especially Blair Cow.
Yeah, he wasn't shy in putting you on the spot, was he?
Oh shit, no! Oh, it was good times. No, but definitely some good memories there at London Irish, no doubt. And then you obviously got the opportunity to coach the New Zealand Sevens. So how did that one come about? Because I think you were supposed to stay for another year, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. I guess the team didn't go so well in the last Olympics. There was always talk that Titch would probably finish up after that. Having been involved with the team previous, I used to keep in touch with Don Tricker and Tony Philp, who at the time were in charge of the recruitment of the next head coach. So they just got in touch, asked what my thoughts were around potentially putting my name forward to coach the team. And yeah, I guess long story short, I stuck my name in. I discussed it with Karen this time. I didn't surprise her with a job opportunity in New Zealand like the 10 years previous or the 8 years previous. But I guess like living back in the UK, we thought we'd get home a lot, see family a lot more. But as you know, when you're coaching in England and you've got 40-something games a year, I probably seen my family less than I did when I was in New Zealand, because nobody would come down for 6 weeks at a time, or we wouldn't go back there for 6 weeks at a time. And I think we've obviously been influenced as a family around, lifestyle and how we live by New Zealand. So the opportunity to come and coach a team, be involved in quite an exciting time, I thought, for the team, where we were going to centralise. There was Com Games, World Cups, Olympics, on the field. I thought it was quite an exciting opportunity. So, yeah, if you'd said to me again 2 years previous that we'd end up moving back to New Zealand, I would have said you were mad. But it kind of just fell into place again, so at the right place at the right time. And, London Irish allowed me to finish up a year early. And, yeah, we jumped on that flight again in the July after the season.
And you obviously had an instant impact with the New Zealand Sevens team. You had some great success straight away, winning all sorts of competitions and Coach of the Year awards.
Yeah, it was. I've never been more nervous ever, and that's including the last few weeks when we played our first game against Samoa, who Titch was now coaching in Dubai, and our second game on, it was 9:20.
Oh, yeah.
And we had, I had no idea if what we'd done in pre-season, around our culture, around, our game was so simple, but we built a lot of stuff off the field around, team culture. And there was a couple of things from that first game. One, we decided to sing before the game. So before we go out to warm up, we now sing, and it's become, second nature to us now. But at the time, we were in a changing room with Wales. And as you know, in Dubai, the changing rooms are not overly big. And I looked at Tim Mickelson and Scott Curry, and I was like, are we singing? And we were a bit like, as you can probably tell, us battlers are probably not the best singers in the team. And I always remember Timmy saying he would do anything to try and win. So I was all right, let's sing. So we actually went into the corridor and sang. And I can remember the feeling change around feeling connected and nice and relaxed all of a sudden. But I went to that game, that tunnel, and I don't know what I looked like, but I felt like I was going to be sick in one mouth. I was that nervous. And then we tactically decided we'd kick long, leave the rucks. We thought Samoa would eventually, turn the ball over or we'd get an opportunity. They kept the ball for 2 minutes and scored at the other end. So I went on at half time and told the boys to get in the rucks. And they said, I thought you said stay out the rucks. I was like, forget what I said, just get in there and get the ball. And I think it was Sione. I think Sione scored a try. He broke through under the posts and scored a try and won the game. And then we got to the final. Couldn't believe it. We got to the final and lost to South Africa. And then the following week in Cape Town, we actually beat South Africa in the semi-final in front of 50,000. And we beat Argentina in the final. And we thought we'd cracked it, and we never won another World Series tournament that year. But we put all our eggs really in trying to win early, and then the Com Games and World Cup was that year. So we really made the plan to try and genuinely peak at those tournaments. It's a bit different than sevens. We are a peak in sport. We have 3 pinnacles over 4 years. It's when you wear a black jersey, everybody expects you to win all the time. But in the men's series, when it's so competitive, if you try and win all the time, deliberately to win all the time, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to win every week, and then to try and peak, for a Com Games and World Cup becomes even harder. So yeah, we made our plans that year to physically and sort of technically, tactically, emotionally peak at the Com Games. And we made some decisions around sending a development team to Hong Kong the weekend before that. Some people criticised, but you were only going to get to Australia on the sort of Tuesday before you played. And as it turned out, it worked really well. The boys were in amazing condition. Our game was in a really good spot. And we went on to beat Fiji in the final, and then the World Cup. We done the same. We sort of sacrificed. That last part of the year to really, try and recondition and rebuild some parts of our game to then try and play really well in San Francisco. And, that was an amazing event at the AT&T Stadium, at the baseball stadium. We played Fiji in the semi-final in front of, it felt like there was 20,000 Fijians in the crowd at the time. And, they always had all the rock stars there around Randrandra and Tuiasova and Nakarewa and all these boys. And that's one of the games that you'll never forget, how well we played in that semi, and then we had to dig deep against England in the final. So yeah, we were, it was, I think some of it was potentially luck. I think some of it was the heart of what happened over the last couple of years, where senior players were hugely motivated to make change in the team and change in their performance, which allowed us to then push them. And, again, I use Timmy a lot of the time, but I remember my first meeting with Timmy came with his little IPP sheet, and at the top he just had "New Era, how good can I be?"
Yeah.
So for a coach seeing your captain and senior player talk like that, and anybody that knows Timmy, his mindset to try and improve every day is as good as I've seen in any rugby player. Alongside Scuzz and some of the senior players, those two really drive wanting to be better. They're never satisfied where their game's at. So yeah, that was it was a cool first year.
And that's 100% the reason why they've been in the team for so long, playing so well, still competing at the highest level. So you can just see what a difference that makes to any player, eh?
Yeah, and if you look at the Olympics, I thought Scuzz was the best player in the tournament alongside Andrew Newstab. I thought the way he drove the team and his sort of fight to win those games, the way he led us, I thought he was outstanding. And Timmy played bloody well too. And both of them, are 34, 33, are physically in the best shape of their career. Across the board. Timmy maybe doesn't quite run the same Bronco as he used to, but he's a lot stronger and he's faster than he used to be. Some of the GPS numbers and jump numbers were all PBing for that Olympics. So that, again, shows you the work they've done over the last few years to keep themselves in really good condition. And they're great professionals. Really, really good professionals, as a lot of the players in the team are. They've sacrificed a lot over the last few years, and certainly the last 6-8 months. The boys have really knuckled down and become in the best physical shape they've ever been in.
And you talked about your successful first year coaching the squad and the accolades that came with it. You won the New Zealand Coach of the Year. You won all sorts of coaching awards. How did you feel receiving these sorts of awards?
I think as a coach, you sometimes feel a bit embarrassed. I'm not sure what the percentage of the difference a coach actually makes. There's a couple of football studies that it's somewhere between 5 and 10%.
True.
That you make that difference. So I think when you read that, it probably keeps your own ego in check that you're actually not making that much of a difference. And yeah, it's nice for people to say you're the coach of the year, but man, it's I think it's a myth if you think you're a coach that makes all the difference. So I just I genuinely want our players to get recognition, mate. I think the Sevens players in New Zealand don't get the recognition they deserve. I genuinely think, I've been lucky enough to work with world-class players, both here. I work with a lot of internationalists in England, All Blacks and Sevens players, and I can genuinely say these boys work as hard and as diligently and as passionately around their rugby as any player I've worked with. So I'd love to see guys like Scuzz and Tim Mickelson and guys like Joe Webber. We've got some of this younger crew coming, and Andrew Newstab, Tony Anshu, Arnashu, guys like Dylan Collier. They're good rugby players. And I think, if anybody getting recognition, it should be these boys around how dedicated they are to this sport and how hard they train. I genuinely think some 15s players would love to play sevens, but potentially some of their own ego and their own little worlds will stop them putting themselves in this window because it's bloody difficult. You get exposed if you're not up to it. Doesn't matter how many times you've played for a Super Rugby team or the All Blacks. If you've got a deficiency in your game, Sevens will find it real quick, whether it's mental, physical, technical. It'll find it pretty quickly. So yeah, I've got genuinely no real interest in my own awards. I just want the players and the team to get the recognition of the work they do, and hopefully they can get that.
So what's next for Big Clark Laidlaw? You finished your Olympic campaign. What's the plans going forward?
What bike?
The marathon.
No real plans. We'll get our 2 weeks done here, and it's actually quite nice to not have too much to think about. We're going to do some of the reviews over the next 10 days and try and tidy some of that up. So when we come out, we'll get some leave, the players and staff. We'll take some time, just to decompress and get away from the game. And I think some of the challenges we've got, obviously, going forward is getting out of the country or getting back into the country. So there is sevens tournaments happening October, November, December around the world. World Rugby is keen to try and make these World Series tournaments happen. But, with quarantine still existing in New Zealand, even for people like us that have been tested, we've been tested every day for 2 weeks. We're fully vaccinated, but we still have to do the 2 weeks in MIQ. So unless the government change, what the protocols might look like around coming back into the country, we're going to struggle to go out. Whether it's a financial issue, because it obviously costs a fair bit of money to put a team through MIQ, or even if it's just space in MIQ. Most of the beds are taken up, I think, between now and October, November. If it still exists, the Cape Town tournament, it would mean we were in quarantine for Christmas. So I don't think any of us are that fired up to have Christmas in MIQ. So it's pretty uncertain, I think, in New Zealand's sevens world. As I say, hopefully our borders can slightly relax around certain criteria. If you've been tested a lot, or you're fully vaccinated plus testing, could it be a shorter period? Things like that. So if that changes, then maybe we can get back overseas and get back in that World Series. If it doesn't, then I don't know. We got like a guest spot on your podcast that can come on and
Yep, definitely. Good coin too.
do like a monthly catch up. Yeah, it sounds it. So yeah, short term, have a break, Jimmy, and relax, spend some time. We've been away for 2 months. It's another part that I'm bloody proud of the team. I've never had a player or a member of management moan around being away. It's going to be 8 weeks. We've been away from our families, and we were in Townsville, and the way everybody just applied themselves and knew that's what it was going to take was awesome. But I think everybody's going to be pleased to get home to their families and friends in a couple of weeks' time.
Is it sevens for you now? Are you set on sevens, or would you be open to a transition back to the 15s game?
Yeah, I'm definitely open to transition back into 15s if I can get the right opportunity. And I do miss 15s. I miss it in some ways. I'd love 15s teams to apply themselves how the sevens boys apply themselves with very little. The way this team applies themselves to training and cracks on and doesn't look for excuses, doesn't really want to influence how long they train or what they do in training, and just embrace what's in front of them. I'd love the challenge of seeing if you can get a 15s team to really embrace it like that. Because there's a lot of different dynamics when you've got tight fives and forwards coaches and lineouts and mauls, and so I'd love the challenge to see if you could apply how a sevens week looks and how a sevens team operate if you could put that into 15s. I miss the game of 15s, the complexity of trying to get 40 boys in a squad to understand how you want to play the game, and I genuinely miss the week to week playing games. It's whether it's tournaments every 6 weeks or it's 15s games every week. I've missed that over the last year. If it's another year where we just get ready for a Com Games and World Cup later in the year, I think that'll be tough because we're rugby players, rugby coaches. You want to play games, you want the challenge of preparing and trying to win. So I missed that in 15. So I think over time, if the right opportunity can come up and the right place at the right time, then then cool. If not, I've got another year in my contract with sevens, and I'll try and prepare the team as best we can through towards the Com Games and World Cup, and then you're only 2 years out from the next Olympics. So I guess who knows if I've got another full 3 years energy in me, because it'll take. It's got to make sure I'm the right person, I guess, going forward to take the team forward, and we've done a lot of work to get it set up really well. So. If it's time for somebody to maybe try and take us forward over the next year, then we need to look at that too.
Sounds like you might be back to London Irish to try and get them to adapt this sevens mindset.
That'd be a challenge, wouldn't it?
Get them to stop complaining. Geez, that'd be tough.
It's actually ironic coming from a Scotsman, isn't it? Because it's in our blood to be negative and moan about stuff. So,
oh, good stuff. Anyway, as always, we've gone to our Instagram for some questions, and mate, lots of well thought out questions came in for you. I guess it's part of your following. First one, you sort of mentioned it before around 15s players coming to sevens, but what stopped Caleb Clark from travelling to the Olympics?
Game time, really, mate. The year before, you talked about COVID. Did it have an impact? It definitely had an impact on Caleb. He probably just hadn't quite found his rhythm again. real urgency in the sevens game. Takes a wee bit of time to get back when you lose it. And we talked a lot. We had to pick the team on the Monday after the Townsville tournament, which was a month before we played. Now, would it have been the same team we picked if we could have waited 3 weeks? I'm not so sure it would have been. I think it might have been a different teammate, and Caleb would certainly been a part of those discussions. But just the mix, we had even little things like Etienne had an injury. So if Etienne didn't come right, or did come right, if he was in the team and he didn't come right, we could make a change. So Caleb would have come in. If he had been out of the team and come right, we couldn't have put him in. So there's some different selection criteria you got to go through to name that team as early.
Oh yeah. So
I think that plus Caleb, not being able to be with us the same as he had been the year before. He'd come in the November. By the time we played in Vancouver, which was like nearly 6 months, he was going really well when he transitioned back into 15. So, I feel disappointed for Caleb that, that was the case. But, ultimately we felt we picked the team that, gave us the best chance of winning.
Interesting. Okay, next question. This one is from your great mate, Cristiano Eves. Eves knows best. Who is / was the best and worst player to coach?
Conrad Smith.
What, best and worst?
Yeah, he's best and worst, because on his good day he was amazing. But man, when his competitive streak came out, I seen him walking off at a game of walk and touch one day in the half. That was a classic, wasn't it? So, oh man, I've been so lucky to coach. The amount of players that I could say had been the best would be huge. The current players that I work with at the minute have got some of the best attitudes I've seen to training and wanting to be good. So, I'd put those boys at the top, and probably coaching Jed Forrest back in the day. That was a handful. There'd be a few of my worst players in there when I was a player coach. Trying to coach your best mates who knew all your ins and outs, and then you were now trying to be serious as a coach was quite interesting.
Oh, good stuff. This one's from Stub Nugget. How many times has he been called Craig, and what's wrong with the song Slice of Heaven?
Yeah, we'll start with Slice of Heaven. Nothing's wrong with it apart from when Stubbsy sings it. I'll tell you a quick story on that. So we as a city, we sing before games. So we sing Samoan, Fijian, Tongan and Maori songs.
Yeah.
The year of the Commonwealth Games, when we went to Vegas, we decided we should sing in English. So we done an ensemble of Slice of Heaven with Stubbsy leading it, and we sang it before we played Uruguay and nearly lost and played terrible. And then we sang it again and played Argentina and actually lost. So we threw it out, and we never ever sang it again apart from when we have a few beers. So that's where that comes from. Stubbsy, when we were a little bit down after the final last week, there was a few tears, and a few of the boys were singing some of our songs, and it was it was getting pretty dark for 15 minutes. Stubbsy brought us round by a full rendition of Slice of Heaven, so you got the boys back up a bit for a time. And then the Craig story is, for some reason, everywhere I go, all the time, interviews, you can read it even online. After Olympics, people call me Clark Laidlaw. I had a guy text me and call me the other day, and he was obviously going out his way to call me by my name on a text, but he called me Craig 4 times. I got introduced on the stage at a big function one time. It's Craig Laidlaw. So it's kind of a running joke in the team now that I just get called Craig. And to be fair, I've been called way worse than Craig.
Oh, no doubt. Oh, Craigie. Okay, good stuff. Okay, next one. When coaching at a high level, how important is the balance of work and fun in the sessions?
Yeah, well, I can't understand anybody that wants to come to work and not have fun. Now, what fun looks like in a training session, can vary, obviously, but having an enjoyable environment where you come to work and want to enjoy yourself and, have fun on and off the field is a no-brainer. So I think in any session, the ability to switch between, focused work and edge and growth is kind of how we use it. So, we're trying to win the Olympic Games. It's a pretty serious serious thing we're trying to do. But if you take yourself too seriously the whole time, then ego and unenjoyment will quickly creep into your environment. So we genuinely try and have a lot of fun and connection as a group. Me, I enjoy banter and having fun. I'm glad you're not in the team doing your info now. I'm the head coach. Some of your infos, the Hurricanes around head coaching and your songs. And if I remember correctly, your Victor Vito injury and your honeymoon was one of my fondest memories.
I still don't know how that happened. He got to go on a mid-season holiday, and I wasn't allowed to go on a honeymoon before the pre-season. Unbelievable scenes. And you must have been a part of that discussion with the management crew at the time.
I had nothing to do with it, Jimmy. I was like, yeah, let him go on honeymoon. He's not going to get a game anyway. He might as well go. And Victor was actually injured, if you remember rightly, and he was injured. Was the
yeah. Oh, Boyd, he did apologise to me for that. He did regret it, but it was one of those ones. It was good for info, but not great for the marriage.
You're still together 3 kids later, so you're all right.
Yeah. Maybe that's the reason that made us stronger.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks to Boydie.
Resilience.
Yeah, that's it. Next question. This one's from Mr. Alex Lewington, Saracen Star. Can you please explain your Hampton-Kingston analogy one more time?
Yeah. G'day, Louis, if he's listening. We had some good battles with Louis, getting players to see the positive side of things. Man, he could drop his bottom lip, couldn't he? But
I love the Sappuccino, that man.
he was competitive, but man, he didn't know how to show it when when things weren't going good. But we used the Kingston Bridge to try and get our phase attack. So one side would be Hampton, the other side would be Kingston, and we used the Kingston Bridge to try and shape which players stayed on which side of the field. If I remember correctly, in a 1-3-3-1 15 shape. So yeah, I thought the boys really enjoyed that. It certainly helped, I'll tell you that much. So
Louis obviously loved it. Louis can relate to it.
Well, you talk about being sticky, doesn't it? So he's obviously remembered it. So it's done its job.
100%. Okay, next one. If you could choose one player in World Rugby to play sevens, who would it be?
Oh, great question. Oh, man, there's so many. Loving some of the French backs. I think everybody would love to see Damien McKenzie play sevens in New Zealand. His speed and agility. I think everybody would love to see him. So yeah, probably Damien McKenzie. But man, there's Chelsea Colby from South Africa. He's obviously played sevens before. He played at the start of his career. He'd be a hell of a handful now that now he's matured into the type of player he is. But yeah, I'd love to see some of those French backs. Obviously, some of the Fijian boys that play for France have obviously played, and Vakatava and these boys have played before. So I'd love to see a really good forward. I'd love to see Ardy have a crack at it again, or players like that can transition the real sort of physicality from 15s and put it back into sevens. So yeah, it'd be a long list, Jimmy. There'd be some pretty cool players you could pick in there, isn't there?
Shit, yeah.
But if I have to pick one, Damien McKenzie. So if he's listening, you can maybe see if
next Olympics
he wants to have a crack. It's only 3 years.
Okay, yeah. Who is the best sevens player in the world, in your opinion?
Oh, the Fijian boys are, Jerry Tuwai and Tui Mumba. Daryl Lungi, the forward that plays, is an amazing rugby player. He's probably got as big influence as anybody in the game. So yeah, probably Daryl Lungi's he's the biggest handful when you got to play against them. I think I genuinely think some of our boys would be up there. I think when you look at how Scuzz played in the Olympics, if you're picking a World Seven, he would have been in it alongside Stubbsy probably as the halfback. So
yeah.
Again, there's so many boys at the minute that like a Longbottom playing for Australia. Man, he's a handful to play against when he's fit and healthy, and he's a real point of difference for their team. So each team's probably got 2 or 3 that you're like, wow, you'd love to work with them. If you could pick a World Sevens team, it'd be a hell of a crew. But Darragh Lungy's he's up there, mate. He's a great rugby player.
I like it. Okay, this is an interesting one. When I read it, it made me really think about it. But who would win a Sevens game between a team made up of All Blacks or the New Zealand Sevens team? 3 months prep.
Yeah, that'd be a good game. With 3 months prep, I'd back us to have the team to still win.
Yeah.
If you give them 6 months prep, it'd be really interesting. You know that. Let's not be disrespectful to Sevens players. You know, around the world, 15s is still where players want to be, and you know, I'm sure a lot of our players have grown up wanting to be, you know, full-time 15s players, and you know that's where the money is. You know, I guess that's where people think is the pinnacle of the game. So ultimately, the best players, you know, around the world and all the countries, not just New Zealand, are playing 15s. You know, and I think that question would be the same for France, South Africa, Australia. You know, all the major rugby playing countries apart from Fiji. The best players are playing 15s. So, you know, if you give them 6 months to understand the game, and, you know, you got to remember most of the New Zealand boys have played sevens of some sort at some stage. So, you know, if you had Jack Gucci, Ardi Savia as 2 year forwards, then they've both played international sevens. You know, if you had Rico Ioane and Bodie, they've both played international sevens. Richie Mwanga would go pretty good, I would imagine. He might be top of the list, actually, to play sevens.
Yeah.
George Bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you've got George Bridge, Damon McKenzie, Will Jordan would be a pretty good side, wouldn't it?
It'd be cool to watch, actually. Yeah, it would be a cool game to see. Like, even if it wasn't 3 months prep, just even less than that, because obviously the game's so different now. Like, you need that fitness. You need it is a different skill set, but like you say, given a 6 month prep, you might be able to change that. But if the game happened like in a month, that would be a cool watch, I reckon.
It would be a good game. I'm not so sure after our 2 weeks in quarantine and a couple of weeks off, but yeah. And as I say, it would be great to get some of those boys to stick their hands up, wouldn't it?
Sure would. Okay, next one. What happened to him in a night out in Jersey? This is from another great Scottish man, Scott Steele.
I'm not sure what he's talking about. We certainly had. It was actually ironic. We had one of our biggest nights with London Irish, didn't we? And it was a game we lost.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. The only thing I would say is Brian O'Leary saved me. We had a medical, had a little concoction of recovery pills to see me right on the Sunday. So yeah, it might have got away from us that night. Cheers, Steely. Thanks for that.
Good times. Okay, 2 more questions. Who is the best up-and-coming player that will have a big future in the Sevens game that we do not know yet?
Yeah, well, you probably know a little bit about him. Will Warbrick has come from nowhere, really. Got involved in Red Bull 2 years ago to come to a pre-season, and within 2 years made the Olympic 13. So Will's a real prospect. We're really excited around. He's a huge athlete. He's only really starting to believe in himself and have the confidence to express himself, you know, within the team. And you've seen glimpses over this year if you've watched the games against Australia as well as the Olympics that he's a really exciting prospect. And you know, we've got a younger player, Kitiona Vai, who's in the back end of the Auckland NPC team. He's just been picked up by them. Kitty's, you know, he's a 19-year-old loose forward. Milani Nana, his little brother. Again, if you've seen the games against Australia or the games in Townsville, he's got a lot of X factor. He's a little bit similar to Ardy. I see him a little bit similar to Ardy and Victor, almost a cross between the two.
Yeah,
you know, now that doesn't mean say he's going to be as good as Victor or Ardy, but he's got the sort of same line-out ability as Victor, how quick he is at the front of a line-out, or you know, that sort of ball-playing skill, but he's probably as quick as, like, say, Ardy. So he's somebody, those two young boys, two sort of young forwards that have both come through Red Bull, that maybe nobody, you know, didn't play sort of schoolboy rugby, they weren't stars. As I say, Kitty's already, you know, even with just, you know, 2 or 3 games with us, Auckland are now seeing him part of their future, which, you know, wasn't the case 6 months ago. So yeah, we've got some good young boys there, mate. We're we probably see the next Olympic team, almost already here, which is, I think, what it's going to take, to be able to win in 3 years' time is boys with a lot of experience in big games. Maybe with some of those 15s players that you're going to tap up for us to come in and join us.
Oh, mate, exciting times ahead. Looking forward to following those guys' futures. But last question, one piece of advice you would give to a young Sevens player?
Yeah, man, you've got some good questions. Have true humility to stay in the moment. I don't know if you've seen the basketballer that played, that won the NBA. I forget his name. I'm rubbish with basketballers' names. I don't follow it enough. But I don't know if you heard him speak, mate, around what humility looks like, around staying in the moment.
No.
And if you're too focused on what's happened in the past, it becomes ego. And you can look to the future, which can be pride. But I think having true humility that allows you to prepare every day, to not get ahead of yourself, to not think you've cracked it, to work your ass off every day would be the best piece of advice I could give a young player. I think people get too far ahead of themselves too quickly. I think we look too far ahead to what might come or what might not come, or too far back on things we've done in the past. A lot of young players get caught up in, first 15 rugby and New Zealand schools and under 20s and so on, but none of that actually matters when you become a man. None of it really makes that much of a difference. So I think if you can have true humility, mate, to work hard and just whatever right in front of you, to whether that's on the field or off the field, Jimmy, it's, whether it's being a good brother or son at that time, or whether it's been a really good young professional. I think that's, if anybody can watch that article, that young basketballer talk, I thought he put it way better than I ever could. So that'd be my advice. I'd probably give it to myself when I was 19, 20, transitioning into semi-professional rugby.
Mate, that is powerful, powerful advice. I even got a little bit of goosebumps during that. Could be the best piece of advice we've had on yet, and coming from the great man Clark Laidlaw. But mate, really appreciate you coming on the podcast. You've been a massive influence on my career, mate. I've travelled pretty much around the world with you, with Taranaki Hurricanes and London Irish. But mate, you've been a huge influence on my career. Really appreciate what you've done for me throughout my career, and mate, it's just awesome seeing you on the stage now that you are Olympic silver medalist, and changing the culture of the New Zealand Sevens team, and the stuff that you're doing as a coach is unreal stuff. So, mate, look forward to following the rest of your journey, wherever that may be, whether it is sevens or 15s. And, mate, appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Too easy. Thanks, mate.
What a lad, what a lad.